Hello and welcome back to the Cultural Podcast. I am absolutely buzzing today, and I mean that literally. I am vibrating right now. The caffeine is hitting the system so hard.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
You stopped at the Tapri downstairs, the one right by the metro station.
Obviously. You know me, I cannot function, like my brain does not even attempt to switch on until I have had that first cup of kadak chai.
Right.
It is a rainy Tuesday, the vibe outside is super low, the traffic is an absolute nightmare, and then boom, masala chai. It is warm, it is spicy sweet, it is basically a hug in a cup.
A hug in a cup. That is very poetic, very deep for a Tuesday morning.
But it is true. And honestly, nothing feels more Indian than that, right? Like, think about it for a second. It is exactly how we start the day. It is the break in the middle of work. I mean, the Sutta chai break is basically a foundational corporate institution in this country.
Oh, absolutely. It is the only thing keeping the corporate world running.
Exactly. It regulates our gossip sessions. It is the fuel of this entire nation. If chai stopped flowing, India would literally stop working.
Yeah, we would grind to a halt.
It just feels so ancient, you know? Like,
I hate to be the one to burst your bubble right at the start of this deep dive. Actually, who am I kidding? I love birthing bubbles. It is my favorite hobby.
Oh no, here we go. What is it now?
That feeling you have. That chai is in my DNA feeling. That whole ancient Indian tradition vibe.
Yeah.
It is a total illusion. It is a mass hallucination, boss.
Wait, what do you mean? Do not tell me chai is foreign.
I mean that the drink you are holding right now, that sweet, milky, spicy, boiled-to-death concoction, it is actually very, very new to India.
Okay, define new.
I am talking about a daily habit that is maybe 100, maximum 200 years old.
Wait, what?
Yeah. For the vast majority of our families, it is probably only 3 or 4 generations deep.
200 years. That is nothing.
We're talking about a timeline where the British arrived, colonized the place, messed everything up, and then left.
Right.
And somewhere in the very middle of that mess, this specific habit was engineered. It was not something we were doing for thousands of years. It was constructed. It was a literal project.
Okay, my mind is already blown. You were telling me that this thing that feels like the absolute most dizzy thing in the world is actually, what? A scam. A glitch in the matrix.
It is not a scam, but it is a massive historical paradox.
Yeah.
And that is actually our mission for this deep dive today.
Okay, lay it out for us.
We need to unpack how a British colonial export became India's national emotion. And our goal is to figure out this one question. Is chai really Indian? Or did we just take a British product and give it the ultimate remix?
Okay, I am so ready for this, but I am sipping this chai with a lot of suspicion now. It tastes a little bit like betrayal. Let us get into it. Where do we even start?
Let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
The word itself, chai. Now, you said earlier that it feels ancient. And linguistically, you are not entirely wrong.
Okay.
This is where it gets fascinating. The word arrived in India centuries before the actual habit of drinking the tea did.
Wait, so we had the word, but we did not have the drink. That is like having the word internet in the 15th century.
Sort of.
Yeah.
It is all about the map.
Yeah.
The story starts in China. The Chinese character for tea is cha.
Cha, okay.
But China is huge, right?
Yeah.
So in the inland regions, the northern dialects, they pronounce it cha.
Right.
But along the coast, specifically down in Fujian province, the local dialect pronounced that exact same character as te.
Te. Oh, okay. That sounds very familiar.
Exactly. And this pronunciation split the entire world. Think of it as the two roads theory.
Two roads diverged in a Yellowwood, sorry, carry on, Robert Frost moment.
No, but literally two roads. First, you have the sea route. The Europeans, the Dutch, the English. They were traders sailing to the coast of China.
So they went to the coastal ports.
Yes, they picked up the tea from Fujian. So they picked up the word te. That is why the English say tea, the French say te, the Spanish say te, the Germans say tea.
Oh, okay. That makes so much sense. They literally just took the word from the specific people they bought it from at the port.
Precisely. But then you have the land route, the famous Silk Road.
Right, the overland trade.
This route went entirely overland, from inland China, through the mountains, through Central Asia, straight into Persia. And because these traders came from the inland regions, they carried the word cha.
Okay, so the Silk Road guys are all team cha.
Yes. And when it hit Persia, which is modern-day Iran, it got a slight modification. In Persian grammar, they added a little suffix, a "y" at the end. So cha became chai, or che.
Che. And from Persia, where does it travel to?
Everywhere else. It goes to Turkey as say, it goes to Russia as che, it goes to the Arab world as chai, and of course it comes down to North India via those same trade routes.
Through the Mughals and the traders.
Yeah, exactly. Via the travelers into Hindi and Urdu as chai.
That is wild. So basically, if your country got tea by sea, you call it tea. If you got it by land, you call it chai.
Almost 100% accurate. There is one major, totally hilarious exception to this rule.
Let me guess.
The Portuguese.
Oh, right, the Portuguese.
Yeah.
Why are they special? They were always doing their own thing in history?
Because they were the very first Europeans to establish direct trade with Macau, and Macau is Cantonese speaking,
Okay.
and Cantonese uses cha. So Portugal is the only country in Western Europe that calls it cha, not tea.
Wow.
Everyone else in Europe is running around saying tea. Portugal is just like, nah, it is cha.
That is a killer trivia fact. I am absolutely going to use that at a dinner party. So getting back to India, the word chai enters our vocabulary through these Persian and Central Asian traders.
Exactly. It enters the lexicon.
Yeah.
But here is the massive kicker. It was just a word. It was quite literally a word waiting for a drink.
What do you mean?
For centuries, chai or che was just a concept or maybe a very niche, expensive medicinal thing in India. That daily ritual just did not exist.
This is so hard to wrap my head around because if you go back to, say, the time of Ashoka or Akbar, surely they were drinking something warm and brewed. I have this really vivid mental image of a Maharaja sitting on a silk cushion, looking out at a palace garden, sipping masala chai from a little cup.
And that image is pure Bollywood fiction. I hate to break it to you.
No, do not ruin history for me. Yar, this is heartbreaking.
We have to unpack this. See, ancient India did have something. We had kata. You know kata, right?
Oh, God, yes. The ultimate Indian immunity booster. My mom force-fed me actual liters of it during the pandemic.
Right.
It is ginger, turmeric, black pepper, tulsi. It is basically spicy water that burns your throat but supposedly makes you strong.
Exactly. It is an Ayurvedic decoction.
Yeah.
It is strictly medicinal. It is meant to balance your doshas. But here is the crucial detail that changes everything.
Okay.
Ancient kata had absolutely zero tea leaves in it. No Camellia sinensis whatsoever.
So it was literally just spicy soup.
Basically, herbal tea without the actual tea plant. It was medicine. It was not a recreational beverage. You drank it because you were sick, not because you wanted to chill with your friends at the corner and talk about cricket. It was entirely functional.
Okay, but wait a second. Tea plants are native to India, right? I remember reading that somewhere. It is not like the British brought the plant itself over on a ship, like they brought, I don't know, cricket or railways.
That is correct. And this is a very important distinction to make. The plant itself, the Camellia sinensis variety Assamica, was growing wild in the eastern Himalayas in Assam for literally thousands of years.
Okay.
It is indigenous. It belongs to the land.
So if the plant was just sitting there in the jungle, who was using it? Someone must have noticed this giant bush with leaves you can use?
The local tribes absolutely noticed. The Singpho and the Kamti people in the Northeast, they were the original OGs of tea in India.
Okay.
But, and this is a really big glut, they did not drink it like we do.
How did they do it?
They treated it much more like a vegetable or a really intense physical stimulant.
Yeah.
They would actually pickle the wet leaves.
Pickle, like a char.
Yes. They would eat them with oil and garlic.
Tea pickle. That is fascinating.
Basically. Or they had another method where they would stuff the leaves tightly into bamboo hollows and smoke them over a fire for a long time. They called it falap.
Whoa! Smoking tea inside bamboo. That is a very different vibe from a morning cup.
Very different. It was used by monks who needed to stay awake for long spiritual vigils, or by hunters who needed a burst of energy in the jungle. It was a functional survival tool.
Right.
It was not afternoon tea with shortbread biscuits, and it certainly was not masala chai at the Nukkad.
Yeah.
So botanically, tea was here. Culturally, chai as we know it simply did not exist.
So we have this massive gap. We have the plant growing wild in the jungle. We have the word sitting in the dictionary from Persia, but we do not have the hot cup of tea in the hand. How do we bridge that gap?
Enter the British Empire. And specifically, enter their massive, fragile, imperial ego and their severe wallet issues.
The British Empire. It always comes back to them, does it not? The classic villain of every South Asian history lesson.
It really does.
Yeah.
To understand chai, you have to zoom out and understand the global economy of the 18th century.
Oh.
Britain had a major problem. They were completely addicted to tea.
Addicted. Like they physically could not function without it.
Obsessed.
The
British working class, the aristocracy, the royals, everyone was drinking tea.
Yeah.
Where did it all come from?
China.
Exclusively China.
Yeah.
China had a total global monopoly on the tea trade, and China was a massive economic superpower back then. Yeah. They did not care about British wool or British clocks or whatever manufactured goods London was peddling. The British would show up with their ships full of goods, and the Chinese emperor would basically say, we have everything we need, your stuff is useless to us, we only want one thing in exchange for our tea.
Let me guess. Silver.
Silver. Cold, hard silver.
This silver drain. I remember this specific term from my history classes. Britain was basically going completely broke just buying tea.
Exactly. It was a trade deficit nightmare of epic proportions.
Yeah.
Britain tried to negotiate, they sent fancy diplomats with gifts, and China just refused to budge.
Wow.
So it stopped being just a trade issue, it became an imperial ego problem. The British decided, look, if we cannot buy it on our terms, we will just grow it ourselves. They needed a farm. A really, really big farm.
And looking at the world map...
Oh, hello, India.
Hello, India. We were conveniently available. We were already under their control, so they decided to turn India into the world's biggest tea garden. But wait, did you not just say the plant was already growing in Assam? Why did they not just use that native plant from the start?
This is where the story gets straight into spy thriller territory. This is the grand heist.
Ooh, I love a good heist. Is there a master thief in this story?
There absolutely is. The British did not know about the Assam plant initially. Or rather, they were so incredibly snobby and obsessed with Chinese tea that they thought only Chinese plants were of any quality.
They thought the Indian plant was inferior.
Exactly. They thought it was a weed. So they hired a Scottish botanist named Robert Fortune.
Robert Fortune? That sounds like a completely made-up name for a pirate or magician.
He was basically a corporate spy for the East India Company. He disguised himself as a Chinese merchant. I mean, fully disguised. He shaved his head, wore the traditional fake queue, the ponytail.
No way!
Yes way. He wore the local clothes, learned the regional language, and traveled deep into the highly restricted, forbidden tea regions of inland China.
That is insane. He must have stuck out.
He risked execution if he was caught. But he managed to steal trade secrets, he stole the exact processing techniques, and most importantly, he smuggled out about 12,000 tea seeds and live saplings.
That is blatant intellectual property theft. That is industrial espionage on a massive scale.
It is one of the biggest historic thefts ever recorded. He smuggled them all out to India in these special glass terrariums. But here's the irony. The massive cosmic joke of the whole endeavor.
What happened?
Those precious stolen Chinese plants, they mostly died when they planted them in Assam. It was just too hot and humid for them.
So all that effort, all that spying for absolutely nothing.
Well, they eventually thrived higher up in Darjeeling, which is why Darjeeling tea to this day is lighter and tastes much more like traditional Chinese tea.
Okay, that tracks.
But down in the plains of Assam, the British finally had this realization. They looked around and said, wait, this local plant that the Singpho tribes have been using for centuries, it is actually stronger, bolder, and it grows like an absolute weed in this climate.
The Assamica variety.
Exactly. So, after all that dramatic theft and spying, the native Indian plant ended up being the actual powerhouse of the empire. But we should really not forget the discovery myth that happened here.
What do you mean?
The colonial history books often credit a British guy, Robert Bruce, with discovering tea in India in 1823.
Let me guess, he did not actually discover anything.
Of course he did not.
Really?
He was introduced to it.
Yeah.
An Assamese nobleman named Manoram Dewan actually took Bruce and showed him the plants growing wild.
Right.
The locals were already using it. The discovery was literally just the British finally filing the paperwork and taking the credit.
Typical. I discovered this thing you have been holding in your hand for 500 years. It is exactly like Columbus discovering America.
Precisely. So by the mid-19th century, the British have their farm. They have the land. Now they just need to scale it up. And this leads us to the much darker side of the cup you are holding.
Yeah, because when we see tea ads today on TV, it is always these beautiful, misty green gardens, women in colorful clothes smiling and plucking leaves, very serene, very incredible India tourism vibes.
The garden imaginary. That is the marketing aesthetic they sell you. The reality of how it was built. It was an industrial machine. It was built and run basically like a prison.
A prison. That is a very strong word.
Think about the logistics. Assam was a dense malarial jungle. They needed tens of thousands of workers to clear it by hand and plant millions of tea bushes.
Right.
The locals naturally did not want to do that backbreaking, dangerous work for the terrible pay the British were offering. So the British set up a massive system of indentured labor.
They brought people in from outside.
Yes. They targeted impoverished, famine-struck regions, Chota Nagpur, Odisha, Bengal.
The coolie system.
Exactly, the coolie system. They transported these desperate people to Assam, very often under false pretenses or forced contracts, and locked them into these restricted zones on the plantations. They legally could not leave.
Mm-hmm.
And the mortality rate was absolutely horrific. Malaria, Kala-azar, sheer physical exhaustion, leopard attacks. It was brutal.
That is so bleak. We never talk about that when we talk about our morning chai.
We do not. And what is worse, they specifically preferred hiring women and children. Do you know why?
I assume because they could pay them even less than the men.
That is the main economic reason, yes.
Yeah.
But they justified it with this weird stereotype of nimble fingers. They claimed women and children had better, more delicate fingers for plucking the two leaves and a bud without bruising them.
Wow.
But fundamentally, it was just about cheap, easily controllable labor. The goal of this entire massive operation was simple. India was a production machine. The tea was for London. It was for the Queen. It was for the British working class. It was not for us.
That is the craziest part of this whole timeline. We were growing it, we were sweating for it, dying for it on these plantations, but we were not actually drinking it.
Not a single drop. For the average Indian living in, say, 1880, tea was this weird, bitter, ridiculously expensive foreign drink that the white sahibs drank in their bungalows. It had zero connection to our local culture.
Right.
It was as foreign to an Indian diet as, I don't know, blue cheese.
So how on earth do we get from that reality to here, to me actively panicking if I do not get my morning cup before a meeting? How did the switch flip?
For that, you can thank or blame the Great Depression.
The Great Depression, like the 1929 American stock market crash. That is connected to my depreche.
It is totally connected. The global economy is a web year. When the Depression hit in the late 20s and 30s, global markets completely crashed. Britain and America suddenly stopped buying as much tea. Consumers there were broke.
So the British were stuck with a massive harvest of leaves.
Millions of pounds of surplus tea just piling up in warehouses in Calcutta and London, rotting away. The planters were panicked. And then the proverbial light bulb went off. The British administrators looked at the map and they saw 300 million Indians living right next to the farms.
And they thought, oh, massive untapped customer base.
Exactly. They thought if we cannot sell it to the rest of the world, we have to make the locals drink it.
So it was not some benevolent gift of culture. It was a desperate sales pivot to save their profits.
It was a hustle, a massive continent-wide corporate hustle. This is where the story shifts into what we call habit engineering. This was not an organic cultural love affair. It was incredibly aggressive strategic marketing.
How did they even do it, though? Because you cannot just force an entire country to suddenly start drinking something bitter and hot.
Especially in India. We are a tropical country.
Yeah.
It is boiling hot half the year.
They used literally every marketing trick in the book, and they invented a few new ones. First, they targeted the main logistical nodes of the country, the railway stations.
Ah, the railway station. The absolute heart of India. Jab we met style. It was the biggest turning point. The Indian Tea Board set up stalls at all the major railway junctions across the country, and they gave the local vendors free kettles. They gave them free tea leaves. They even heavily subsidized the milk and the sugar.
Wait, they just gave it away for free?
Initially, yes, or extremely, practically invisibly cheap. They actually invented something called the pice packet.
What is that?
Piece, as in paisa. It was a tiny, single-use packet of tea that even the poorest daily wage laborer could afford to buy.
That is literal drug dealer tactics. The first hit is free. Get 'em hooked.
It literally was.
Yeah.
They wanted to hook the massive Indian population on the caffeine. And targeting the railway station was a stroke of genius because it was a completely neutral ground.
What do you mean neutral?
Think about the social dynamics of the 1930s. Think about caste.
Okay.
Caste rules in India were incredibly strict back then, especially about food. Who could eat or drink with whom? Who touched the water? Who cooked the food? But at a busy, chaotic railway platform, you were in a rush, you were exhausted, the train is leaving in exactly 2 minutes. Those rigid social rules temporarily got suspended.
Because panic overrides tradition.
Exactly. Everyone, the Brahmin, the Dalit, the Muslim, the Christian, they all stood at the exact same vendor and quickly drank from the same cheap clay collade.
Wow.
It was an accidental social leveler. The tea stall became this weirdly democratic space just out of sheer convenience.
That is profound. The sheer desperation for a caffeine hit literally broke down centuries of social barriers.
It definitely helped soften them in public spaces, but they did not stop at just the stations. They deployed tea vans.
Tea vans. Like food trucks.
Exactly like food trucks. Imagine these big motorized vans with massive kettles painted on the side, driving slowly through remote rural villages, blasting gramophone music, and offering free brewing demos to crowds of farmers.
A literal tea party on wheels.
And for the urban middle class,
Yeah.
this is honestly my favorite part of the whole campaign, they hired what they called lady demonstrators.
Lady demonstrators. Who
Yeah.
were they?
They hired these very sophisticated, educated Indian women dressed in pristine, elegant saris. And their job was to literally knock on doors in respectable middle-class neighborhoods.
Like door-to-door salespeople.
Yes. They would ask to go into the kitchens and personally teach the housewives how to properly brew tea.
Properly meaning the British way, I assume?
Yes, the colonial way. They brought the teapot, the knitted tea cozy. They taught them about steeping the leaves. And they specifically tried to teach them to serve it at exactly 4 p.m.
Why 4 p.m.?
Because they were trying to artificially manufacture a British tea time routine inside Indian homes.
They were actively trying to make us culturally British in the afternoon.
Exactly. Create the slot in the day, and you create the permanent demand for the product. And they went to the factories, too. That was probably the most cynical part of the whole operation.
What did they do in the factories?
The Tea Board aggressively lobbied factory owners in Bombay and Calcutta to officially introduce tea breaks into the shift schedule.
Out of the goodness of their hearts for worker welfare.
No, absolutely not. They did it to combat lassitude.
Lassitude? That is a very fancy colonial word.
It just means laziness or physical fatigue. They pitched tea to the owners as a productivity drug. They said, look, your workers are slowing down by 3 p.m. Give them this hot stimulant, and they will work harder, faster, and for longer hours.
Wow. So they created the morning routine, the factory work break, the elegant evening relaxation. They literally manufactured all of these slots in our daily timeline.
They colonized our time. And the genius of it is, once something fits that perfectly into your daily timeline, it stops feeling new. It just feels like life.
Okay, so I'm following this. The British gave us the tea leaves, they gave us the aggressive marketing, and they mapped out the timeline. But
what?
the tea they were selling, that proper British tea with the teapot and the 3-minute steep, that is definitely not what I drink at the Tapri.
No, it is absolutely not. And the pivot, this is my favorite part of the whole historical narrative. This is the Great Indian Remix.
Yes, the rebellion part. Inquilab Zindabad, let us hear it.
See, the British tried so hard to teach us etiquette. Steep the delicate leaves in hot water for exactly 3 minutes. Pour it gently into fine-bone china. Maybe add a tiny polite splash of milk at the end.
I'm actually laughing just picturing a Mumbai chaiwala doing that during rush hour. Excuse me, sir, would you like a delicate spot of milk in your porcelain cup today?
Exactly. It completely failed on a mass scale. Why? Because the British were mostly selling the Indian public the cheap stuff, the grade they called dust.
The leftovers.
Literally the sweepings. The broken low-grade leaves that they could not export to London. Now, if you steep cheap tea dust in water the British way, it tastes incredibly bitter and nasty.
Right, yeah.
You cannot just drink it black. It is way too astringent.
So what did we do instead?
We applied our own Desi culinary logic. We looked at it and said, forget this gentle steeping nonsense. We're going to boil the hell out of this.
The decoction method.
Yes. We essentially treated it like making a curry. We threw the water, the cheap tea leaves, the milk, and a ton of sugar all together in one pot, and we boiled it violently.
And why so much milk and sugar? I mean, besides the fact that it tastes amazing.
Calories, boss. Pure economics. You have to remember who this was for. For a manual laborer, a rickshaw puller, a mill worker, chai is not just a refreshing drink. It is a liquid meal.
Liquid meal. That phrase makes so much sense. If you are poor and you cannot afford a full, proper breakfast, a thick, heavy, sugary cup of chai physically keeps you going.
Precisely. It became known as the food of poverty. The sugar gives you an immediate glucose spike for energy. The thick milk gives you keep fat and protein to fill your stomach. And the tea gives you the caffeine hit to keep working. It is literal survival fuel.
That is so practical. And then, where do the spices come in, the actual masala part of masala chai?
That is where the ancient history loops back in. Remember the kata we talked about at the very beginning?
The Ayurvedic immunity soup.
Yes, everyday Indians look at this harsh, bitter British tea dust and said, this needs serious help. This needs flavor. So they just reached into their kitchens and threw in the crushed ginger, the cardamom pods, the cloves, the black pepper, the exact same medicinal stuff we'd been using for our health for thousands of years.
Oh, wow. So we basically hid the British tea inside our own ancient medicine.
That is a completely brilliant way to put it.
Okay.
We hid the colonial ingredient deep inside the indigenous recipe. We masked the terrible bitterness of their cheap tea, and we added back our own healing properties. And that right there is how masala chai was born.
It is basically a culinary subversion. They handed us the ingredient, but we just completely hijacked and changed the recipe.
We totally rejected their rules. They said steep, we said boil. They said serve it in delicate porcelain. We said serve it in disposable clay coolhads or little glass tumblers.
Yeah.
They said use it for polite, quiet drawing room conversation. We said we will use it to fuel loud, aggressive political arguments at the street corner.
I absolutely love that. It went from a very stiff colonial stimulant to essential Indian sustenance.
And we cannot ignore that technology played a massive role in cementing this remix too. Jump forward to the 1960s, and the CTC machine becomes the standard.
CTC, what does that stand for?
Crush, tear, curl.
Crush, tear, curl. That sounds like a professional wrestling finishing move.
Yeah.
And here comes the crush, tear, curl.
It sounds violent because the process is violent. It is a machine that takes the tea leaves and literally crushes and tears them into those tiny, hard, brown pellets of tea that we see in literally every single Indian kitchen today.
Oh, the granular stuff.
Yes, that CTC tea is specifically engineered to be boiled. It releases its deep color and strong flavor instantly when it hits boiling milk. It is made for our style of chai, not for delicate European steeping.
So by the time we get to the 70s and 80s, this remixed chai is just fully established everywhere.
It becomes the absolute social glue of the entire nation. Just think about the concept of the adda.
The adda, the neighborhood hanging out spot, the ultimate vibe.
The chai stall is an incredibly unique sociological space. It's the ultimate social leveler in modern India. You will literally see a corporate CEO step out of an air-conditioned Mercedes, walk up to a roadside stall, stand right next to his own driver, and they will both drink the exact same tea from the exact same vendor.
That is very true. If you go to a fancy cafe, there is an immediate economic barrier to entry. But at the Tapri, it is totally democratic. Everyone is equal for those 5 minutes.
It is where all the local news travels. Long before WhatsApp or Twitter existed, the local chai stall was the daily news feed. It is where political opinions are formed and debated. It is a public space that the colonial system absolutely did not design, but it is the primary space where modern India actually happens.
Okay, speaking of modern India, we have to pivot and talk about the global scene for a minute. Because right now, our humble chai is incredibly trendy in the West.
Oh, God. Please do not tell me we're going to talk about the chai tea phenomenon.
We have to. I literally have to control my blood pressure every single time I am abroad, and I hear someone at a counter say, I will have a grande chai tea.
It is the ultimate linguistic tautology. It drives me insane. Chai literally means tea. So when they say that, they are just saying tea.
Can I please have a hot tea with some milk?
It is ridiculous. But it represents something much deeper and more frustrating. It is a classic example of cultural flattening.
Explain that term, cultural flattening.
In India, chai is just a generic noun. It just means tea.
Right.
You can have black chai, lemon chai, ginger chai, masala chai. But when it moved to the West, chai was flattened into a specific flavor profile.
Oh, I see. A flavor.
Yes, like you will see a chai-flavored candle or a chai-spiced muffin. To Western consumers, the word chai just means a mix of cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla.
Which is incredibly funny because vanilla has absolutely no business being anywhere near a cup of chai. That is a straight-up culinary crime.
It is a crime against humanity. But that is the process of latteification.
Yeah.
Giant coffee chains like Starbucks or brands like Oregon Chai. They took a gritty, working-class, heavily boiled Indian street drink and they turned it into a fancy, foamy, $6 cosmopolitan lifestyle accessory.
It is so weird, right? Because here in India, it is the drink of the masses, the working-class fuel. Over there, it is the drink of the affluent yoga mom.
Exactly. It signals cosmopolitan wealth there, while it signals working-class survival here. And very often, the Western coffee shop version does not even use real tea or spices. It is just a pre-made, sugary syrup pumped into steamed milk. It completely lacks the soul.
It totally lacks the kadak nature.
Yes.
That sharp astringency that actually hits the back of your throat and wakes you up. You do not get that bite in a smooth vanilla latte. You need that aggressive bite.
No, you did not get it at all. But, we are seeing a major reinvention of the culture right here at home, too. Just look at the recent rise of the celebrity chaiwala.
Oh, man, Dolly Chaiwala, the guy with the crazy colored hair, the sunglasses, the absolute unbothered swag. Even Bill Gates flew down and had tea from his stall.
Exactly. The humble, invisible street vendor is suddenly becoming a massive internet influencer. It's a totally new kind of branding for the 21st century.
Yeah, they're treating tea pouring like mixology.
But we should be careful not to get too carried away with the glamour of Instagram Reels.
Why do you say that?
Because we have to remember where the tea actually comes from. The physical reality of places like Darjeeling and Assam.
The plantations.
Yes, we see this beautiful champagne of teas, branding on the luxury boxes, but the daily reality for the actual workers in those gardens, it really has not changed enough since the colonial era.
The plantation system is still running.
It is still there. The wages, the labor laws, the complex fair trade issues, it is a deeply layered reality. We are drinking our history, yes, but we are also consuming a product of a massive industrial system that is still actively struggling with its own colonial past.
Wow, that is a heavy realization to drop. Every single cup literally has all of that complex history steeping inside it.
It really does. But I think that is exactly why the drink is so incredibly powerful to us. Chai feels timeless to you, not because it is factually ancient, but because it is an ultimate survivor.
Let us unpack that final thought to bring this all together.
Think about the entire journey we just went through. It started as an act of theft, stolen as seeds from inland China.
Right. Then it became a literal prison, the brutal labor camps in the jungles of Assam.
Then it became a desperate corporate sale, the aggressive habit engineering marketing during the Great Depression.
And finally, it became a cultural rebellion, the masala chai remix by the Indian working class.
Exactly. We took something that was violently forced upon us by an empire, and we fundamentally changed its DNA to suit our own palate, our own economy, and our own souls. Tradition is not always about what your ancestors did exactly 5,000 years ago.
That is so true.
Sometimes tradition is just survival repeated long enough.
Tradition is just survival repeated long enough. That is an incredible line. That is definitely going on a t-shirt. I am completely stealing that.
I will take 10% of the profits on that merchandise. Royalty check, please.
Done. We will work out the contract later. So, to you, the listener, if you are holding a hot cup of chai right now while listening to this, really look at it. It is not just sugar and water and leaves. It is global geopolitics. It is industrial espionage. It is colonial resistance. It is literal drinkable history.
And it is absolutely delicious.
And it is absolutely delicious. So go ahead, take a sip, slurp it loudly, make that noise. You have definitely earned it today.
Absolutely.
Well, that is it for this deep dive. We hope you will never look at your morning cup the exact same way ever again.
We will be back.
We will be back. This is the Cultural Podcast. Stay curious.